Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
Hi, and welcome to the Chep Safari podcast hosted by me. My name is Chep, and I am on a safari. On this podcast, we have conversations on life and what that looks like for me, for my guests, and definitely for you who interacts with us. Hopefully, these episodes help me and you uncover the mysteries living has to offer and help each one of us on this journey we call life. Join me by subscribing, by turning on your notification bell so that you're notified whenever I post my new episode next week, and by leaving a review on every episode that you enjoy. So I hope you'll journey with me as we discuss all things life.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Chep Safari episode 3 of season 2. I am super excited that we got this far. Technically, this should be like my 10th episode, my 10th total episode on my podcast channel. Ooh, quite a milestone, I have to say. Today we're recording this episode in the Bundus, and if you do hear the cock crowing, it's only because it's just a little bit past 7 in the morning. My voice is a bit rusty as well. I woke up actually like almost an hour ago, but it took me about 30 minutes trying to set this up and also like finish up things in the house. This is the Bundus. Birds flying around, birds chirping. Today is my last day here. This is why I actually woke up early to record this particular episode. I wanted to actually record during the day yesterday, towards the evening, but the sun was ridiculously hot. Here, when the sun rises, like after it's done its magic of it looking beautiful in the morning, it's unbearable, especially during this dry season. We're looking forward to the rains anyway. So let's begin today's episode. But before we begin, the usual. If you have been following the Chep Safari podcast since the beginning, we have been doing this segment called the Safari Check, which is a segment where I check in with myself technically, but I also check in with you. I share my check-ins with you, and just generally to understand where it is I am at in life at the moment. So usually we live life, we are always rushing through life. We're always worried about the things we just did or that we hope to do in the future, and fail to take some time to think about our present, our now. So that's basically what the Safari Check is about. So if you're listening in on any podcast platform, kindly check in with me in the review section. You may as well write to me on my email, thechepsafaripodcast@gmail.com, letting me know how your safari looks like at the moment. So if you've seen me interviewing guests before, then you know I check in with the guests I have around, just so that I can find out where it is they are at in life. So Chep checking in. Ooh. My safari, I was actually thinking about this today morning as I was preparing to set this up, and I was like, what am I going to really talk about when it comes to me checking in? What does my safari look like? So I'm grateful. My safari has me grateful, has me hopeful to achieve the things I want to achieve. And it also has me Contentment is something I always strive for. As long as it hits my mind like this, I'm always trying to pursue contentment. So I am content. I am content with where I'm at, even if it's not as exciting or as I had hoped my life would look like at this moment. I am practicing contentment because there's always something to be grateful for. Today I'm grateful for a beautiful sunrise. So today's episode, it's ridiculous how I don't know, I just thought about how, I should actually do an episode of me being in my mid-20s. I thought mid-20s was just 25 years old before I turned 26. So I was like, I should do an episode of being in my mid-20s, which is 25. Until I did the math, I actually haven't researched. So if you do want to correct me, please do correct me. And if you're watching me on YouTube, you can correct me in the comment section below. As well as leaving your Safari check in the comments section. So for this particular episode, it is titled, let me go to my notes because I'm just being a little bit more diligent about planning my life. So the title is Lessons Learned in My Early 20s that I am taking into my mid-20s. So just before I actually recorded this particular episode, the thought behind today's episode was to title this episode, was to title this episode just lessons learned in my early 20s. And then I realized as I was writing down these points that this is a lesson that I'm actually practicing in my mid-20s. So I might as well just add that to the title block. So just to explain a little bit about how I came into categorizing the 20s. I hope I'm correct. I haven't done my research. But as I was saying earlier, I thought that I would record this episode when I was 25 years old and just talk about being in my mid-20s because I actually thought that mid-20s was only 25, the age 25. And then recently, this past week, when I was thinking about this episode, I thought about early 20s being, I said with the mid-20s, so I'm like, I'm probably, mid-20s should be 24, 25, 26, and then early 20s, 21, 22, 23, and then late 20s, 27, 28, 29. So that kind of adds up. So that kind of adds up to the mathematics of early 20s being 21 to 23, mid-20s being 24 to 26, and late 20s being 27 to 29. So if I'm actually wrong, please correct me in the comment section below. I have done no research and I have no data to back that up. So I will go into this. I have only 5 main points of lessons that I picked up and I learned in my early 20s, but I'm currently using in my mid-20s. These are sort of my pillars at the moment. And mind you guys, can you imagine I'm in my last year of my mid-20s? I thought for some reason I'm just getting into my mid-20s. When I did that math, I was like, okay, Chep, you are actually not as young as you want to think you are. Anyway, point number 1. It says, don't wait for permission to shine your light. Guys, if you have been following my podcast episodes, you had this point from one of my previous episodes, 26 lessons I learned in my 26 years of life. And I had to put it as number 1 because it's a lesson that I'm just bulldozing through because there's a lot of moments or times I have held myself back because, I'm like, it doesn't pass the approval of A, B, C, D, E, or wait, I need to ask this person in my life what they think about this particular idea, even if they really won't support it, like after me. Okay, let me just give an example because I don't want to be sounding so vague. Now let's think about, this is random, didn't plan this. So if it doesn't add up, apologies. However, let's think about like a business idea. You have a business idea in your mind, and you actually really think it's a valid business idea. You've looked at the market, or even if you haven't done like vast market research, you've looked around yourself, like the market around you, the people around you, and you're like, oh, actually, this is a product or a service that is required now. But I'm not too sure. So let me ask this friend of mine who whose opinion I think should matter. And mind you, this friend of yours is no expert in whatever field you're going to look into. In fact, they've never even owned a business, and they never want to own a business, but you really want to seek their approval. Make that make sense. So you seek for their approval, and then they're like, I don't think so. I don't use that product, or I don't think you can do it. And then you take an extra 1 year or 2 years, and then you're like, you know what, let me just do it. You do it. The market has either been, someone else has either filled into, like taken up that space and the position you're supposed to have taken up in terms of being in the market. Now you have to start again from scratch because of the time you've wasted. The competition is high. And then this particular person who you had asked for their opinion doesn't even support you in that particular business venture. So what was the purpose? Make it make sense. So don't wait for permission to shine your light. Because if you wait for permission to shine your light, first of all, you may waste time. Second of all, you may never do whatever it is you have to do within you. And third of all, no one really cares. No one really cares as much as you think they do. They don't. So just pass it through God. Ask Him about it. Pray. Ask Him to guide you. Ask Him to give you all the red flags and the red stop signs and the green lights. And then pursue it. If you're able to find more information from other people, go ahead. I am not here saying that you shouldn't ask other people about things, but do ask the right people. And then don't wait for permission. Just go ahead and do it. There's a lot of things you are yet to learn. If you think that starting, for example, a podcast requires you having a name and your first episode thought through, that's not it. You'll come and realize, oh my goodness, I have a lot to learn. Oh my God, I was recently just sharing about a little information about podcasts with a friend of mine. And I was just thinking about the days I began, and I thought, oh my gosh, it was just about having the right equipment or starting a podcast, having the right podcast name. There's a lot more to learn. Like you'll realize, oh my goodness, I've actually run out of episodes to talk about, or points to talk about, or I really need to learn how to upload just the audio or extract just the audio and upload it to a podcast platform. I never thought about that. How? So you go on YouTube, you're like, how do I? Because you're used to probably editing videos. So don't wait for permission to shine your light. Try things and fail. When you try and fail, it doesn't mean you're a failure. You've just you're a success. You're a success story. Yeah. You'd rather try and fail. That doesn't equate to failing. That actually, in my eyes, you are a success story. Another thing about waiting for permissions to shine your light, this thing about seeking approvals, or you think, or you being selfish to share what has been placed within you. Sometimes you think, if I withhold this podcast, this talent of speaking or having conversations on different topics, not necessarily a talent, but an ability to do so, then I'm being humble. Brother, sister, that's selfishness being disguised as humility. So shine your light. Use your talents that have been placed within you. Yeah. So point number 2, never doubt your abilities. This is quite something, especially now that I'm in the real world, quote unquote. It actually is the real world. After campus, now I'm done with my internship. I'm looking for work placement as I pursue my own personal projects in the architectural field. It's easy to just doubt yourself. It's easy to question your abilities, but I always get reminded either by the people around me or the environment around me, or the circumstances and situations people around me have gone through, that I, Chep Safari, I am equally worth the opportunities. I, as Chep Safari, I am qualified. You, as my listener, you are qualified. This might be through a certification. Maybe you have your certificate, your papers from your diploma or your degree, your master's, whatever it is. You are qualified. And even if you don't have any of the papers, you probably have a skill that you have taken up learning. You have invested in knowledge, learning and building up gaining knowledge on a particular thing that you want to do. So never doubt your abilities. Whatever little you know is equally worth the opportunities that are before you. That's something I'm actually putting, I'm like, I wish I knew this earlier, but as they say, I don't know if you've heard people talk about, this is my dog, Simba. Can you hear him? Walking right behind me. I can't see him, there he is. And sitting right behind me. Fun fact, just before I go, there's an episode, my last episode, I talked about my fear of dogs. And the dogs in the Bundus are dogs that I was actually also afraid of, Simba included here. So now I can just chill. Without anyone close to me, I'm just chilling and the dogs are chilling. And go check that episode on my journey, this journey I'm on of getting over my fear of dogs. Let's get back on track. Okay, point number 3. What you think you know, ain't it? This may sound a bit contradicting to point 2, but when you actually look at it, it's not contradicting at all. Point 2 saying that never doubt your abilities, and point 3 talking about what you think you know, ain't it. This just allows you or provides you the ability to leave room for the unexpected. As someone was listening to a couple of years ago, this should be the end, this should be the beginning. Oh wait, I think it was the end of 2019 going into 2020. If I'm wrong, apologies, please do correct me in the comment section below. However, I was listening to a sermon by Dr. Tony Evans, and he had just lost his wife, and he had to do a sermon for the church. I don't know if he had to, or he just decided to, even through my loss, I will go ahead and do this sermon. And he talked about, it's a story I actually give a lot of my friends. I'm not quite sure whether, I can't remember much, to be quite honest, but I remember this illustration that he gave of while planning your life, allow God to be part of your plans, right? Leave room for God, so that when unexpected situations happen, then you have an understanding that someone else was doing the planning with you. And he gave a story of, I don't know if it's from the verse that talks about I won't even pretend. I haven't. I no. Let me leave that out. But I remember he gave some sort of illustration of you probably want to go from point A to point B. So you have this route planned in your head, but you get to a certain junction and the roads are closed, there are barriers, so you have to take a different route, which is a longer route. The route being longer doesn't necessarily mean that it won't take you to point B, but you go on a different tangent that you had planned. Then you get on that new route and realize, oh my goodness, these views are ridiculous. Oh my goodness, these people around me are amazing, or I'm learning new things, or I'm having new experiences. So always plan, but leave room for God, so that in case your plans don't go as intended, then you know, okay, I'm having a glitch here, but I think this glitch is caused by God, who's in charge of everything. That's point number 3. Point number 4. There's so much room for growth. It's almost ridiculous how when you look back at your life and you're like, hey, that's me? Me? Like a man who said no to that particular situation. Oh, that's okay. Got it. Thanks. Good night in Lydia KM's voice. I actually do love the TMI podcast. People's Murugi Moni and Lydia KM. So, but if you don't listen to TMI, please, what are you doing? It's a whole Kenyan, and a whole international individual. Yeah, check them out. However, there's so much room for growth. If you do look back at your life, let's take this illustration. Don't just be there listening and thinking that I'm the only one who's experiencing growth. Trust me, you are experiencing growth as well. It might be in the positive or negative direction, but just stay with me. Think about where you were this time last year. Okay, maybe most of us can't remember March, unless maybe March has a significance to it. But let's think about January last year or December the previous year. But just think about a time a year ago or even several years ago. Do you even think you look the same? You know, you probably look a bit different. Your hair has probably grown a little bit longer or quite short if you cut it. So you have a new look. You've added maybe a bit of weight and you love it, like myself. Or you've lost a bit of weight and you love it. Or you don't love it as well. That's okay. You have learned a little bit more of something that you were learning or are still learning. You got over a fear that you probably thought you would never get over, and now you can see the improvement. Check. You have traveled to places you probably never thought you would have gone. There's that growth that you've had, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Now, this illustration of a tree, I don't know where I had it from, but it's probably from one of the self-help gurus or something of the sort. When I was in the phase of like listening to a lot of that and self-development, which I currently still am low-key. So I think it's from the self-development guys, one of the guys, and they gave an illustration of a tree. And I actually picked it up and observed the same with a particular tree that I normally see almost every now and then. Now, a tree will grow. You might look at a tree and think, oh gosh, you're not growing, or you look almost the same as when I saw you yesterday or 2 weeks ago or 3 months ago or even a year ago. You can think, the growth is minimal. But it doesn't, the growth is not, you think the growth is not there. But in reality, the tree is actually really growing if you take time to observe it. The leaves are fuller, the tree is taller, the bark is stronger and thicker. the seasons in and out, whether it sheds its leaves, it produces fruit. There's growth with trees that you might not even notice until you probably pay attention or become a little bit more observant of the particular tree. Then you're like, okay, this tree, you always look at it, you're like, you're never growing, but it actually does grow. And it doesn't shout, it doesn't scream, it's not there making ridiculous noises for your attention, but it's growing in silence. That's something that I have picked up and want to also follow through with my last years in my mid-20s. Point number 5. One of the best things about growing up is that you gain control. You gain some sort of control. And this control comes from the increased understanding or increased knowledge that you gain as the years go by. I just remembered the illustration I wanted to give in point number 3, and I can give the same illustration here. There's a common saying that says, or a common question that you get asked, that if you can go back in this situation, you can go back to your early 20s and have the lessons that you learned already, that you learned in your early 20s, be something that you already know, like you know for sure. Will you be able, or would you be able to change your early 20s? Would you want to change your early 20s? So for me, a lot of people like, no, I would never want to change my early 20s, only because, only because it made me who I am now, which I totally understand and I'm in full support of. But part of me also is like, man, I wish I knew some of these things. If I completely knew these things in my early 20s, I would have changed my past. Vizuri sana, thought I'm somewhere different today. However, life doesn't work that way. But one of the things that I acknowledge now that I'm in my mid-20s is that once you grow up, there's a lot of control you gain, mainly from the knowledge that you pick up along the way of life. You then are able to put them into application, or maybe realize their significance in life. You start realizing, actually, if I do use my time well during the day, then I'm becoming a much more productive person. I can get a lot done. I can not strain my body by sleeping so late, watching TV, and then having to wake up early for a class. You realize that if I do plan my time well, then I'm able to balance life's desires and wants and needs for myself with a good, healthy lifestyle, if that makes sense. I think it does make sense. So you gain control of a lot of things. You gain control of who you allow around you, around your circle, who you entertain, what you watch, what you consume. You gain a lot of that control. Sometimes when you're younger, you have peer pressure around you. Maybe you want to please this group, you want to please this other group, you want to think about this group, you want to think about this other group, you want to be considerate about this person's feelings or this other person's emotions. However, now you get to a point where you're like, okay, what's best for me at the moment? Also considering other people as well, but you also put yourself into consideration. So you gain a lot of control to some extent. Obviously, there's some things you can't control, and that takes us back to the illustration in point 3 by Tony Evans. Anyway, so those are lessons learned in my early 20s that I'm definitely taking into my mid-20s. If you are in your mid-20s, please share the lessons you learned in your early 20s down in the comment section below if you're watching on YouTube. I'd really love to read your comments, pick out what it is you're practicing at the moment. And if you're not in your mid-20s yet, please go to the comment section and just check out people's thoughts and comment. Let's have some little interaction down in the comment section below. I guess that's it. I guess that is it. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far, or listening in on the podcast platforms that we are on. So ensure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my podcast on Apple Podcasts, and leave reviews on whatever podcast platform you are listening in from. Share this as well with those who you think will find this beneficial, and I do hope I will see you in next week's episode. Enjoy the rest of the week. Goodbye.